All right, all set to go.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I call this meeting of the Board of Psychology's Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee to order. Ms. Prito?
Yes, good morning. Kasuga,
Here.
Cervantes,
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Roll is complete.
Thank you. We'll move to item number 2 on the agenda. Your welcome and opening remarks. The goal of our committee here is to advocate for legislation and develop regulations that provide for the protection of consumer health and safety. The committee reviews, monitors, and recommends positions on legislation that affects the board, consumers, and the profession of psychology. The committee also recommends regulatory changes and informs the board about the status of regulatory packages. This is the committee's first meeting of 2022, and our makeup is the same as last year. I'll be chairing the committee alongside Drs. Kasuga and Dr. Phillips. We do have new board staff joining our committee for the first time. We have Ms. Rebecca Bond, our legal counsel, and Ms. Susie Costa, our legislative and regulatory analyst, and we'll be hearing from both of them during today's meeting. But I hope that you join me in giving them a warm welcome. Just by way of housekeeping, we're scheduled to meet from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. or until our business is completed. So I'd like to aim for a half-hour lunch break at noon. And so I'm sharing this so that we can have some predictability, but we'll remain flexible as we progress through our busy agenda. But I wanted to create predictability for the committee, for our staff, and for members of the public that are joining us. So with that, I just want to open to Dr. Kasuga or Dr. Phillips if they have any welcome or opening remarks in our first meeting of the year.
This is Dr. Kasuga. I don't have anything, but just wanted to share that I'm happy to meet with everybody.
Thank you.
And I will echo what Dr. Kasuga has said. I will say that I am having some technical difficulties with WebEx. So if at some point I go off, I'll be coming right back on again.
Okay. Noted. So we will be taking votes today, so if we have any trouble, we'll accommodate as needed, okay? Item number 3 on our agenda is public comment for items not on the agenda. Important to note that the committee may not discuss or take action on any matter raised during public comment, except to decide whether to place the matter on an agenda of a future meeting. Will the moderator please post the instructions for public comment and open public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the question and answer panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. Or you may simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I am not seeing any requests for comment at this time. Madam Chair, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you. So moving to item number 4, this is the COVID-19 waiver update. This item begins on page 9 of our combined packet. Ms. Sorick.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. Good morning, everyone. Included in the meeting materials is the waiver update. And just to let everyone know that we have a couple of waivers that are scheduled to expire on the 31st of this month. So that would be next week. One of those is the reinstatement of the inactive or canceled license, and the other is the face-to-face supervision waiver. That waiver has been re-upped, so once it expires on the 31st as planned, it will renew on April 1st for another 6 months. The only caveat to that is if the declared emergency is lifted, that will expire that waiver automatically. So that is an update on that. And there are a couple of other waivers that are also contingent upon the declared emergency still in effect. So if that changes, all of these waivers will go away. That are included in the meeting materials. And there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that is the update, and I'm available for any questions the board may have, or the committee.
Thank you. Members of the committee, do you have any questions or comments on the waivers?
Not for myself.
None for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank Ms. Sorick and the team for, and Ms. Chung for, I'm probably not naming everybody, but all of you who have been tracking the waivers and how our applicants and licensees are able to use them or not, or like the prevalence of their use. It's helpful, and it's been, I'm sure it's been a lot of effort to track the consistently changing conditions, and I just want to share how much I have appreciated these updates. Thank you. So moving to item number 5, discussion and possible approval of committee meeting.
Dr. Cervantes?
Yes.
Public comment.
Oh, thank you. I skipped a part. Do we have public comment on item number 4?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 4, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, we have a attendee identified as Vinny raising their hand. So Vinny, you should be able to unmute yourself. And you're unmuted.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, members of the board. My name is Dr. Vinny, and I have a question with regard to the waiver for supervision. The waiver for supervision for remote supervision has been incredibly powerful and effective in reaching candidates able to provide therapy in areas that are usually highly underserved. Is there any reason why these cannot become a permanent conditions of supervision and not it has to be immediately withdrawn, or has to expire immediately as soon as the emergency declaration by Governor Newsom ends? It seems to me that even online supervision is still face-to-face. And although I have researched a little bit any peer review article, there does not seem to be any research showing that one type of supervision is superior to the other, or that there is something added to one kind of supervision when compared to the other. Can anybody help me to better understand this issue?
This is Antoinette. I can try, Dr. Vinny.
Thank you.
So there are a couple different things at work here. So we have the current waiver that is in place, and the authority for that waiver is under the declared emergency. So that will be in place for as long as the declared emergency is in place. Another moving part is the board approved language actually back in 2018, before all of this pandemic started, which would allow remote supervision to meet the face-to-face requirement. That regulatory package will be drafted within the next year. That is a longer process. Later today, we will be talking about legislation that the California Psychological Association is sponsoring, which would come into effect January 1, 2023. And that would allow for essentially what the waiver does now to continue. So a couple different moving parts and pieces to that. And we will be discussing that legislation later on in the agenda. But I just wanted to let you know that there is an effort to go ahead and continue with what is currently in practice with the waiver. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Ms. Starek.
All
And
right.
thank you, Dr. Vinny.
And this is the
Go ahead.
moderator. I don't see additional requests for comments. So shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
You're welcome.
Madam,
And then I see Dr. Phillips' hand up. Dr. Phillips,
yes.
before we
Thank you,
move on.
Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think the simple, which is what was being captured by our executive officer, Ms. Sorek, the simple answer to the question is, we don't have the authority to do it until either there's a statute or the regulatory package has made its way through the appropriate channels, which is a lengthy and time-consuming process. So we all see the value. I'll speak for myself. I can see the value in synchronous video supervision. Unfortunately, we don't have the authority to allow that until either the statute being proposed by the California Psychological Association is passed, or our regulatory package makes it through all of the chain of command. So the CPA approach to this is going to be much more expeditious. But I think speaking as a practicing psychologist, I think we all see the benefit of being able to conduct supervision by video.
Thank you. And we will be discussing that later in today's meeting. And Dr. Vinny, it has been a topic that has come up at several of our meetings, especially during the course of the pandemic. And we hear from practitioners like yourself on the support for this change. So know that you've been heard, and that there are different avenues that are where we are where this issue is moving forward, and including a discussion on statutory language later today. Thank you. So there's no other public comment?
That's correct.
Okay. So now we can move to item number 5, discussion and possible approval of committee meeting minutes from June 11th, 2021. This item begins on page 12 of the combined packet. Is there any committee edits?
I have none.
None for me either. And if you want, Madam Chair, I can make a motion to adopt minutes.
Yes. So you,
Second,
we have a motion to adopt, a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented, since none of us have any edits. Did you capture that, Ms. Preto? I butchered that.
I did.
I'm
That's
having the
totally
Friday
fine.
mornings.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. I've got it.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't have any further comment. Let's go ahead and open public comment, and then we'll come back and take the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on the minutes, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We will give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you. Ms. Preto, can you call the roll?
Yes. Kasuga,
Aye.
Cervantes,
Aye.
Phillips.
aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now moving to item number 6, this is legislation from the 2021 legislative session for review and possible action. This item 6 has ABC. It has 3 sections. So what I'm going to do, because this is mostly informational, is after A is presented, we'll ask for committee and public comments, then we'll present B, and then we'll present C, and then we'll present B, then committee comment, public comment, and then C, and then committee comment and public comment. We'll do it in that order. Does that sound good? I think
Yes, ma'am. It
you
sounds
got
good.
me?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you so much. I think I'm thinking faster than I can speak today, so bear with me here. Okay, so item 6A is board-sponsored legislation SB 401, Healing Arts Psychology Amendments for sections 2960 and 2960.1 of the Business and Professions Code regarding denial, suspension, and revocation for acts of sexual contact. This item begins on page 20 of the combined packet. Mr. Glass-Steagall, do you have an update on this?
Good morning. I think Ms. Costa is prepared for this,
Oh,
but I'm
okay.
happy to chime in as needed.
Thank you. Sorry, Ms. Costa.
No problem, Dr. Cervantes. Thank you. Item 6A is SB 401 by Dr. Pan, and it is our sponsor bill. This bill would add sexual behavior, inappropriate actions, and communication of a sexual nature for the purpose of sexual arousal, gratification, exploitation, or abuse with the client or former client to the list of what is considered unprofessional conduct that would give an administrative law judge the statutory authority in a proposed decision to include an order of revocation. The proposal also adds clear definitions of certain sexual acts. And the amendments to these code sections would not change or diminish the board's adjudicatory discretion to the final discipline. So SB 401, as many of you may know, is a carryover from last year, also known as a 2-year bill. Currently, the bill is in Assembly Rules and has not been referred to Business and Professions. However, committee staff told the board staff that the bill should be heard in April. That concludes my remarks for SB 401. I am available for questions about the bill.
Thank you. Is there any committee comments?
I do have one.
Go ahead, Dr. Phillips.
It's a question. Ms. Costa, when you wrote committee or COM dot on RLS, that stands for Committee on Rules?
That is correct.
Okay. Because sometimes these acronyms, when they may be well known to people in the know, such as yourself,
No, thank you for the clarification, Dr. Phillips. Yes, it
aren't
is.
always obvious to us.
Yes, so it has not been referred to a policy committee just yet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Kasuga?
I don't have comment except to say that I'm glad that it's moving forward.
Thank you. And I just want to add as an update, we had meetings with some of the members of the board, had legislative meetings last month, and we stressed this was our priority again, and it was very well received. We've just been running into the challenge of because of the pandemic, the members have had limits on the number of bills that they can carry, and that's been one of the obstacles for this moving forward. It's more procedural than it is on substance, and so I'm hopeful that that this will be our year on this one. I think there's a lot of support for it, or at least the feedback I've gotten has been very positive. So thank you so much. Let's open public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am opening up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 6A, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may simply raise your hand. All right, I do not see requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you. Item 6B are bills with active positions taken by the board, and we have 3 bills here. This is an information item, so we'll hear updates on each bill and then open the committee and public comment. Is this Ms. Costa too?
Yes, this is. Thank you.
Thank you. And then if I may, AB 32 is on page 33 of the combined packet. SB 731 is on page 64, and SB 772 is on page 111 for those following along. Okay, thank you, Ms. Costa.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. So I will just go through all 3 bills, and we will move to public comment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. So item 6B1 is AB 32 by Assemblymember Aguiar Curry. This bill would require the State Department of Healthcare Services to indefinitely continue the telehealth flexibilities in place during the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency. The board has a support position on this bill. Currently, it is located in Senate Health, but does not have a hearing date. It is supported by numerous organizations, including the California Psychological Association. Next, we have item 6B2, which is SB 731 by Senator Durazo. This bill amends section 11105 of the Penal Code, which would prohibit the board from receiving conviction information for applicants to the board if their conviction was granted relief pursuant to specified sections of the Penal Code, so long as a period of 2 years has elapsed since the date of relief was granted and the applicant was not convicted of a new criminal offense. The board has an opposed position on this bill because it would hinder the board's ability to carry out consumer protection requirements. This bill is located on the assembly floor, and it failed passage in September 2021. This bill is available for reconsideration, but a vote has not been taken yet. It is supported by numerous organizations, but opposed by other DCA boards. The final bill in item 6B is SB 772 by Senator Ochoa Bo. This bill would prohibit the assessment of an administrative fine for a minor violation and would specify that the violation shall be considered minor if it meets specified conditions. The board has an opposed unless amended position on this bill. This bill failed to pass out of the Senate and did not meet the House of Origin deadline from January 2022. Therefore, this bill is dead. That concludes my remarks for item 6B. I am available for questions about these bills. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any committee comment on this update? Seeing none, can we open public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 6B, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen or simply raise your hand. We will give you a moment. All right, I don't see any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you. And so moving to item 6C, watch bills. This begins on page 114 of the combined meeting packet. It is from there begins a summary for each of the bills listed. Most are now inactive and a few were chaptered. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
I have one quick question, and I think it's probably
Sure.
best to Ms. Costa. I was wondering, there's reference made to a constitutional provision that effectively killed some of these bills. Ms. Costa, could you explain that to us a little bit?
I'm sorry, could you clarify your question?
Yeah. What does it mean when you say that the bill has died because it
Oh, thank you.
the
Yes.
Constitution doesn't allow for it?
Yes. So when a bill does not meet specified deadlines that are set up by the legislature annually, such as the House of Origin deadline, every even year there is a House of Origin deadline, meaning that the bill needs to get out of the house that it was introduced in. And if that bill does not make it out by usually January 31st or so, then that bill is officially no longer able to move in that bill number and its current form. A legislator can reintroduce that bill in a different bill number, but that specific vehicle, that bill number is no longer available. Does that clarify your question?
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification. When that happens, I take it most of the time it does not get reintroduced, or is that
It depends. It depends. Most of the time it doesn't, but I have a few examples from item 6C where a couple of them were reintroduced.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the clarification.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Kasuga, do you have any items you'd like to discuss on this watch list? It's informational only. Okay. I see.
Sorry, I'm having problem unmuting.
Okay.
No, not at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other comments or questions on these because most of them are not active anymore. So, but I appreciate that we have them here for discussion. We open public comment for item 6C, watch bills?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am opening up the Q&A panel. And if any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may simply raise your hand or displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
All right. All right. Now we get to the good stuff. Item number 7 is legislation from the 2022 legislative session, review and possible action. The first item is so it's so we have 7A is going to be review of new bills, and then for possible recommendation to the board, and then 7B we're going to go through bills that are recommended for watch. So let's do so for this one, after 7A1, as we consider taking a position, we'll do a motion and open the public comment after each one. Okay, so that's just by way of housekeeping. So 7A is review of bills for active position recommendations to the board, and number 1 is AB 1662 by Gibson, a licensing board disqualification from licensure for criminal conviction. This item begins on page 238 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. Item 7A1 is AB 1662 by Assemblymember Gibson. This bill would authorize a prospective applicant that has been convicted of a crime to submit to any board or bureau a request for a pre-application determination that includes information provided by the prospective applicant regarding their criminal conviction. This bill would require the board, once receiving that request, to determine if the prospective applicant would be disqualified from licensure by the board based on the information submitted with the request, and would require the board to deliver that determination to the prospective applicant in a timely manner. Board staff recommends the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee adopt an oppose position on AB 1662 and requests that the committee recommends that position to the full board. The analysis goes into greater detail with the following concerns: significant cost pressures, increased workload, omission of charging fees to prospective applicants, and unanswered questions and lack of specificity. Regarding significant cost pressures, the department requested the board provide data on what the bill would cost the board. In response, using existing data from the enforcement unit, board staff determined that this bill would cost the board $41,663.54 annually. Additionally, the board would need to request a 0.5 staff service analyst position to meet the workload as required by the bill. The bill is currently set for a hearing in the Assembly Business and Professions Committee on April 5th, 2022. That concludes my remarks on AB 1662 by Assemblymember Gibson. I am available for questions about the bill, analysis, or recommended position. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Costa. I have a question, and this may be for Ms. Bond, or maybe Dr. Phillips knows, but I was curious if because there's a pattern of there's another similar bill we're going to discuss later that is trying to get to have us give advice on whether or not an applicant is eligible for a license based on a criminal record. And I'm curious if, and each bill is different, but would it open us to, or expose us to litigation if at that phase we were to advise that someone was not eligible based on the information they provided, but they haven't gone through the whole application process at that point? I was curious if that was a possibility, and if it is, that maybe we might add that to our concerns for this bill.
Dr. Cervantes, that's a really interesting insight. I was going to defer that to board counsel to see if she had any thoughts.
Sure. So I think I think that's very insightful, but probably very premature because it's just, I think, too broad at this point. I think it's just going to depend on too many things. And once you have legislation in place, once there's a statute in place, that's going to dictate a lot as well. So I think it's probably just premature at this stage.
Okay.
Would it be accurate, however, Ms. Vaughn, to say that it's a concern that there could be, liability issues for the board if the wrong guidance was given? If there was a challenge that would, require additional steps in the process, additional appeals cost going down the legal route? Would it be accurate to say it's a concern for us that that could be a mitigating factor or that could be a possibility?
Sure. I guess it doesn't hurt to raise that now so that it's on. Sure. Yeah. That you could flag those things now as it goes through, and you're considering, and they're considering these things.
Okay. That was just my initial thoughts as I was reviewing this. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other comments from the committee members?
I guess I just have a brief comment, and that is that there is, I'm going to call it, for lack of a better word, a confusing hodgepodge of bills related to the subject of people's past criminal convictions. And the further we get into this, the harder it is for me to understand. It seems like everybody takes a different approach to doing this, the different legislators that bring forward these proposals. But it becomes very confusing to know what's current law and what is proposed law. I know we've gone through regulations as to at least one, I believe, assembly bill that required us to have justification for looking at people's past criminal convictions beyond a certain point. But it seems like this bill in particular, at least as I read it, and I'm sure the intentions are different by the author, at least as I read it, has not really been very thoroughly conceptualized from a process point of view. So I share staff's concerns with this particular potential enactment.
I wonder if we, if maybe, go ahead, Mr. Glass-Steagall, while I get my thoughts together.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. Dr. Phillips, I just wanted to thank you for that comment, and I agree wholeheartedly that with the many bills related to criminal histories, it is extremely confusing at this point to try to figure out what is current law, what are all the different changes they're trying to make. So I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
I'm wondering if this, because I was thinking the same thing too. I wonder if this needs some attention at some point. Maybe we have a study session or something about those, just to clarify where we are, so that we can consider any new bills in that context. I don't know that we have. I don't know that that's needed immediately, but it is. I feel it too. It's because we're talking about it from a slightly different perspective each time, based on probably the member who introduced it and what it is influencing them. It is getting a little messy for me too. So maybe that can be something we consider in the future, or some, I don't know, some kind of study session on that topic.
Or perhaps, Madam Chairman, we could have a presentation from board staff on which bills are, we actively have to consider that are currently in law, so that we can better put it in the context of any additional legislative proposals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Could we, what would be helpful is like a crosswalk on these. Do we, maybe we can do that at the next meeting and just kind of compare them side by side?
So this is Antoinette. I'm wondering if just in our analysis, if we can add a piece to, because this I think what is kind of being brought up is the AB 2138, which was the substantially related convictions. And that was a bill that we did regulations to implement, and that that impacted the whole department. I'm wondering if it would be helpful to have a blurb in similar bills that are kind of interconnected, that we put a blurb on how it relates to 2138, or the connection or interaction between the proposed bill that you guys are considering and the current 2138 that we are currently operating under. Would that be helpful to include that in the analysis so you have that cross-reference?
I have
What do
one,
you think?
Ms. Sorick. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay. Because this really does concern me. Is AB 2138 the only bill at this point that we actively have to consider, or are there other enactments similar in tone or on the same subject matter have been enacted that we're also restricted by?
So 2138 is current law. So we did regulations to implement that, and that determines how we look at people that have convictions that apply to the board. So that is current law. There was another bill that would have kind of tagged on to AB 2138, and that bill died. 1076. Oh, that passed. Is that Jason? I think that's Jason. I don't know. Heather.
It's not me, but 1076 did pass, and that is talking about automatic relief of criminal records.
Okay, so that was another bill so there it seems to be a pattern of ways to look at how we look at applicants coming into the pipeline and making sure there aren't any unnecessary barriers with people that may have a record. So this AB 1662 is the latest iteration, which would essentially front load the determination before someone even applies. So what we've seen with 1076 and 2138 is this is what you guys can and cannot consider with someone that has a record. And this bill that we're looking at today would say, well, why even bother if you can just tell me if I can apply or not? And as you know, because you guys have looked at cases involving applicants, there are several mitigating factors, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach to any applicant that has any particular violation of the law. So that's what we're trying to get away from, is this cookie cutter, so if you get a DUI or if you get this, then you cannot do this or you cannot do that, because it's so case specific and determinate upon the facts of the case and the applicant and the situation, that there is no one size fits all approach. And to be fair, I think that is a more fair situation for the applicant, because we're putting all factors into consideration when we're looking at that applicant. So that's my just 2 cents, but yes, there's been the 2 bills related to once you're in the pipeline, what can the board consider? This is front loading it and before an application is even given to the board, if that makes sense.
But if I understand correctly, there's no process, there's no threshold, there's no payment. It's almost more a concept than it is kind of a roadmap to how we would do that if this legislation would pass. Am I correct in saying that?
This is Susie, and that is correct.
Oh my goodness. I could think of more colorful words, but I'll just stick with oh my goodness.
So I think I think your suggestion, Ms. Sorick, about having some language on the analysis for these bills that are coming on this related topic, in terms of what is law now, would be helpful. I was thinking of how we might compare the language side by side, but it is hard because they all actually each are coming from a different. They kind of want us to do a different thing, and that might be hard to pull together and for it to be useful in the context of making a decision about taking a position on a bill. So I think that would be helpful if we could add that language in the future, at least to keep for us in consideration, and certainly when we present to the full board, so that they have it, so that they have some context. And then I would like to add, in terms of the concerns raised by staff, I would like to add the possibility of opening or exposing us to litigation if this on this particular bill. Do we need a motion for that when it comes?
No, you can direct staff to address those issues. I guess also if I probably didn't articulate this quite so well, but when I was saying that once a statute is in place, I get when you mentioned the litigation risk, I guess what I'm getting at is when you're at that point following your Practice Act, then that reduces
the exposure.
If people sue you, you just say, well, we're following what the statutes are telling us to do. So and same with regs, you'll be going through that process as well to implement what gets implemented. Now, as you all pointed out, does it hurt to highlight various concerns now and kind of show that, like, oh, maybe we think this is too broad or too permissive, or here's some specific concerns we have based on applications we see. No, that's not too early to do that. But the idea that it invites litigation, I think, because we're talking about legislation, I think that's less. I'm hedging because, of course, theoretically, you can always get sued, but yeah, it's theoretically less of a concern because you would be following your law at that point.
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
That would be good.
But I guess to elevate the alarm, the concern, to elevate the to add to the list of concerns, I don't mind adding the concern.
Sure, exactly. Sure, yeah.
So, okay. So let's see. So do I hear a motion to recommend oppose on AB 1662 to the Board of Psychology?
I can do that.
And I would be happy to second that.
So I move to oppose. I move to recommend to the full board an opposed position on AB 1662.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Dr. Kasuga and second by Dr. Phillips.
Correct.
And
Sorry, Madam Chair.
go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to, before we move on to public comment, I just wanted to say that I appreciate Ms. Sorik's explanation of some of the concerns that the board staff has. Because when I was reading the concerns, and it just says unanswered questions and lack of specificity, it didn't quite capture what I think I heard from Ms. Sorik, which is the inability to make thoughtful determination due to the lack of specificities, basically, is what I gathered. And I think that there's a very important point, and maybe we can lead with that over the significant cost pressures. Just in terms of, like, I think that's a more important reason to be concerned and oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kasuga. Okay, we're going to open public comment and then we'll come back to take our vote on the motion.
All right, this is the moderator, and if any member of the public would like to comment on the motion, I have opened up the Q&A panel, and you may type comment and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. And I see we already have an attendee, M. Laura Lee, raising the hand, so you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go, you're unmuted.
I'm glad about the motion, because in a situation where we have an internship and responsibilities toward gatekeeping, these are all the things that we would look at.
Hello? I can't tell if they lost a connection or something. I can't tell if they finished their comment.
Yes, I thought they'd finished, so I muted her, and then I gave her permission to unmute herself just in case.
Let's try this. How about this? Can you hear me better now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. So yes, that was my comment, that I appreciate the conversation because, once again, inside of an internship where we're concerned about gatekeeping, we would wish to look at those items and be able to make a decision, to perhaps even not accept someone to begin with into the internship. And I imagine that would be the same for private entities as well. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comment.
And this is the moderator, and I see no further requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
So we have a motion to recommend oppose on AB 1662 to the Board of Psychology by Dr. Kasuga and second by Dr. Phillips. Ms. Pritto, can you call the roll?
Kasuga.
Aye.
Cervantes.
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I forgot about adding the staff's going to add some of the concerns we raised on that one, right? We got that?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. So item 7.2, AB 1733, Quirk, state bodies open meetings. This item begins on page 247 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa?
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. Item 7A2 is AB 1733 by Assemblymember Quirk. This bill, which would take effect immediately, would require all open meetings to be held by teleconference, would allow for use of teleconference in closed sessions, and would remove existing provisions of the Act that require each teleconference location to be identified in the notice and agenda and accessible to the public. This bill would instead require the state body to provide a means by which the public may remotely hear and observe the meeting and may remotely address the state body via two-way audio-visual platform or two-way telephonic service, and would require information to be provided in any notice to the public indicating how the public can access the meeting remotely. This bill would require the state body to provide members of the public a physical location to hear, observe, and address the state body, and would authorize the members of the state body to participate in a meeting remotely or at a designated physical meeting location, and specify that the physical presence at any meeting location is not necessary for the member to be deemed present at the meeting. Board staff recommends the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee adopt a support if amended position on AB 1733 and requests that the committee recommends that position to the full Board of Psychology. The board has moved to exclusively remote meetings because of COVID-19 and has found the public participation to have increased. The board would like the option to continue holding remote webcasted meetings and meetings that are webcast in person, but not teleconference. The suggested amendment would provide a state body the option to hold an open meeting by teleconference. Additionally, this bill is currently double referred to both Assembly Governmental Organization and Assembly Business and Professions. It will be heard first in Assembly Governmental Organization and does not have a hearing date set. That concludes my remarks on AB 1733 by Assemblymember Quirk. I am available for questions about the bill, analysis, or recommended position. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any committee comment?
I'd make a motion to adopt the recommendation of staff that we take this to the board with the support if amended position.
I second the motion.
So we have a motion by Dr. Phillips to adopt the recommendation of support if amended on AB 1733. Did I say recommend? We're recommending this to the board of support if amended, as recommended by staff. The motion's by Dr. Phillips, second by Dr. Kasuga. Thank you. I have no comment to add. Can we open public comment on this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on the motion regarding the bill 1733, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I'm seeing no requests at this time for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, Ms. Pruteau, would you like to call the roll for this motion that we have from Dr. Phillips?
Yes. Kasuga,
Aye.
Cervantes,
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And item 7.3 is on AB 2123 via Padua, Bringing Healthcare into Communities Act of 2023. This item begins on page 265 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa?
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. Item 7A3 is AB 2123 by Assemblymember Viapudwa. The bill, the Bringing Healthcare into Communities Act of 2023, would establish the Bringing Healthcare into Communities program to be administered by the California Housing Finance Agency to provide housing grants to specified health professionals to be used for mortgage payments for permanent residents in a health professional shortage area as specified. Under the bill, a health professional would be eligible for a grant for up to 5 years. The bill would make its provisions operative upon an appropriation by the legislature. Board staff recommends the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee adopt a support if amended position on AB 2123 and requests that the committee recommends that position to the full Board of Psychology. This bill would provide mortgage assistance for mental and behavioral health professionals. However, psychologists and registered psychological associates are not explicitly listed in the bill. The board's suggested amendment would specify that licensed psychologists and registered psychological associates are eligible for housing grants. Additionally, this bill has been referred to the Assembly Health Committee, but does not have a hearing date set. That concludes my remarks on AB 2123 by Assemblymember Viapudwa. I am available for questions about the bill, analysis, or recommended position. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Costa. Is there any comments from the committee?
I have no comment.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Seeing none, do I hear a motion to recommend the support if amended position on AB 2123 to the Board of Psychology?
So moved.
It's been moved by Dr. Phillips to recommend us, and second by Dr. Kasuga to recommend the support if amended position for AB 2123. We'll open public comment and then come back for the roll call, Ms. Brito.
I have a question.
Sure.
There, and this is for our council. So since we are psychologists and we will be potentially eligible for this if we supported it, should we be, for the sake of transparency, should we like abstain from voting or recommending it as licensed members?
You have the ability to advocate for, yeah, I don't see a need for abstention or recusal.
Thank you.
I could look further into it if staff has concerns. No, I don't see an issue there.
Ms. Bond, my understanding is that you can, that we can vote on measures that impact us individually so long as it impacts profession across the board. Is that correct?
And that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
In other words, there wouldn't be anything, if you're advocating for something, I mean, the legislature would still have to adopt it and it would be an open process. Yeah, I'm not seeing concerns here.
Thank you. I just wanted to raise that question for the sake of transparency as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's probably good that we just had that clarification for at the point when we present to the whole board where there are other practitioners as well. Okay, so is there any other committee comments so we could go to the public comment? Good. Okay, now we could go to public comment.
All right. This is the moderator, and the Q&A panel is available if any member of the public would like to make a comment regarding the motion on 7A3, or you may simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I'm not seeing any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend the supportive amended position for AB 2123. It was made by Dr. Phillips, second by Dr. Kasuga. Ms. Prideaux.
Kasuga,
Aye.
Cervantes,
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now item number 4 is AB 2754, Bauer Kahan, Psychology, Supervising Psychologist Qualification. This item begins on page 283 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. Item 7A4 is AB 2754 by Assemblymember Bauer Kahan. This bill would require the Board of Psychology to establish regulations for supervising psychologists to include audio and visual modalities. Board staff recommends the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee take a support if amended position on AB 2754 Bauer Kahan and recommend that position to the full Board of Psychology. The board's proposed amendments would clarify the definition of, quote, real time in relation to supervision to include in-person or synchronous audiovisual means in compliance with federal and state laws related to patient health confidentiality, as well as add an urgency clause to make it take effect immediately. Additionally, this bill will be heard in Assembly Business and Professions on April 26th, 2022. That concludes my remarks on AB 2754 by Assemblymember Bauer Kahan. I am available for questions about the bill, analysis, or recommended position. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Costa. Is there any committee comment?
I can make a motion.
Let me just check with Dr. Phillips. Is there any comment, or should we go right into our motion here?
I think a motion would be appropriate.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Kasuga.
I move that the committee take a supportive amended position and recommend the position to the full board on AB 2754.
Second.
So we have a motion to support if amended on AB 2754 to the Board of Psychology. Been moved by Dr. Kasuga, second by Dr. Phillips. I don't have further comment. We'll go ahead and open public comment, and then we'll come back and take our vote.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on AB 2754, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. And I do see that Colin Sewers has a raised hand, so you may now unmute yourself. And you're unmuted.
This is Colin Suarez, Director of Government Affairs of the California Psychological Association. Good morning to you all. So AB 2754 is a bill that the CPA has sponsored this year. As was referenced earlier when Ms. Sarek briefed you all on the efforts to extend the remote supervision waiver. This was the legislative effort. I do want to point out a couple of things. The bill is going to be amended at some point, either with Board of Psychology amendments or draft amendments that we've been working on with the Legislative Counsel's Office, the attorneys for the legislature. We do believe that we need to change that statute to make it workable and easily adoptable by the board. So we thank Mr. Glassbeagle and Ms. Sorek and the entire team over there for working with us on this one. But we have seen the efficacy of this. We do anticipate taking those amendments and adding an urgency clause so that the bill would take effect upon immediate signature by the governor's office. We've had a lot of positive response from members of the legislature about the need for this. There's a similar bill moving that would extend remote supervision for Board of Behavioral Sciences as well. We also, I would like to point out that we are having conversations with the governor's administration about potentially taking this bill and adopting the provisions of it within to a budget trailer bill, which would also take effect and become force of law upon the governor's signature. If that is the case, we will let the Board of Psychology and the Ledge Reg Committee know as soon as that arrangement has been made, if it is made. But we do want to thank you for your supportive amended recommended position. And if you have any questions about intent, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. I think we got you on intent.
All right, this is, oh, I was just going to say, I see no further requests for comment. Shall I close it?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you, Mr. Suarez, for being here. Okay, so we have a motion to support if amended, to recommend support if amended to the board for this bill. Ms. Pruteau?
Kasuga.
Aye.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
I just wanted to ask, would it become effective as to our licensees immediately upon passage of the bill? Or would it require us to promulgate regulations, which I think is part of what I've read, in order to make it effective, which basically builds that time delay back into the system?
This is Ms. Costa. The bill would become effective immediately upon signature by the governor, and we would not have to promulgate any regulations to make this take effect.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the clarification.
Okay. Can
Can I
we come back?
continue? Yes. So we have
Yes.
Kasuga, Cervantes,
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Moving to item number 5, SB 1365 Jones Licensing Board's Procedures. This item begins on page 265 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you again, Dr. Cervantes. Item 7A5 is SB 1365 by Senator Jones. This bill would require each board within DCA to publicly post on its internet website a list of criteria used to evaluate applicants with criminal convictions so that potential applicants for licensure may be better informed about their possibilities of gaining licensure. This bill would require DCA to establish a process to assist each board in developing this internet website. The bill would also require DCA to develop a process for each board to use in verifying applicant information and performing background checks of applicants, and would require that process to require applicants with convictions to provide certified court documents instead of listing convictions on an application document. The bill would further require each board to develop a procedure to provide an informal appeals process that would occur between an initial license denial and an administrative law hearing. Board staff recommends the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee adopt an opposed position on SB 1365 and requests that the committee recommends that position to the full Board of Psychology. The analysis goes into greater detail with the following concerns. Lack of clarity regarding the criteria used to evaluate applicants with criminal convictions. Lack of clarity regarding the process for verifying applicant information and performing background checks of applicants using court documents instead of listing convictions. Potential financial detriment regarding costs to waive associated fees with the background check process. And finally, lack of clarity regarding the informal appeals process. This bill will be heard in Senate Business, Professions, and Economic Development on April 4th, 2022. That concludes my remarks on SB 1365 by Senator Jones. I'm available for questions about the bill, analysis, or recommended position. Thank you.
Is there any, thank you, Ms. Costa. Is there any committee questions or comments?
I have a comment and then I'll make a motion. Again, this seems like a concept rather than a defined process, which makes it very difficult to evaluate whether this would be a useful addition to procedures or not. It certainly involves incurring additional costs without any kind of corresponding fee. So I would make a motion, we adopt staff's recommendation that we oppose and that we bring that forward to the board for its consideration.
I just
Second the
want to thank you, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Kasuga, and I just want to echo your comments. So we have a motion by Dr. Phillips to recommend an opposed position for AB 2123 to the Board of Psychology, and the motion was seconded by Dr. Kasuga. If there is no other comment, Dr. Kasuga, then we can open public comment.
No further comments from me. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We're going to open public comment and then come back and take our vote.
All right. This is the moderator, and we have the Q&A panel available. You can raise your hand, or you can type that you have a comment and submit it to all panelists using the Q&A panel. We will give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
It's closed.
Okay, so we have our motion on the floor. Ms. Pruteau, would you like me to repeat it?
No, I haven't. Thank you so much. Okay, we have Kasuga,
Aye.
Cervantes,
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now item 6 is SB 1428 Archuleta, psychologist, psychological testing technician registration. Ms. Costa? Oh, this item begins on page 291. Go ahead, Ms. Costa.
Thank you again, Dr. Cervantes. The final bill in item 7A5 is SB 1428 by Senator Archuleta. The memo, analysis, and proposed amendments are in the bill's hand carry folder. This bill would create a new registration within the Board of Psychology for psychological testing technicians. It would authorize an individual to provide psychological or neuropsychological test administration and scoring services if that individual is registered with the board as a psychological testing technician and meets specified education requirements, or if the individual is gaining specified education requirements to be a psychological testing technician. Board staff recommends the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee take a support if amended position on SB 1428 Archuleta and recommends that position to the full board. The bill as written needs further clarification on requirements pertaining to the implementation date, education, registration, renewal, supervision, and enforcement, including fees related to psychological testing technicians. The analysis goes into greater detail into the need for these changes and includes proposed amendments. This bill will be heard in Senate Business Professions and Economic Development on April 4th, 2022. That concludes my remarks on SB 1428 by Senator Archuleta. I am available for questions about the bill, analysis, or recommended position. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Costa. Is there any committee comments or questions?
I have none.
Okay, seeing none, do I hear a motion to recommend support if amended on AB 1428 to the Board of Psychology?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Dr. Kasuga and second by Dr. Phillips to recommend a support if amended position on AB 1428 to the Board of Psychology. That's our motion on the floor. We're going to open public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm opening up the Q&A panel. And if any member of the public would like to comment on the motion, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may simply raise your hand. And Colin Suarez, I see you have your hand up, so you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you again, members. Collins Horace again with the California Psychological Association. Thank you for the motion to support if amended. SB 1428 by Senator Archuleta is another bill that CPA is sponsoring this year. We have heard from a number of folks around the legislature, from the governor's administration and stakeholders, that there is a severe need for folks who are already practicing in mental health to find some avenues to expand their ability to practice. As you know, because we came to the Board of Psychology back in 2019 in the before times, before COVID, to discuss this proposal that we were working on internally. After several years of back and forth, and with the legislative process normalizing as the COVID pandemic subsides, we hope, we decided that it was in fact time to move forward with this proposal. So I do also, again, want to thank Mr. Glassbeagle, Ms. Sorick, and the entire team at Board of Psychology for working closely with us on this, on suggesting amendments to make the adoption seamless at Board of Psychology. We have made it clear to the committees of the legislature and individual members that we believe the most appropriate avenue to provide these technician services is by clarifying statute, establishing this registration category, and ensuring minimum standards for education and training. We are in conversations with both the author's office and the Senate Business and Professions and Economic Development Committee to ensure that the intent of the bill is carried through, and that any language we adopt is one that is equitable to stakeholders, protects licensees, protects registrants, and protects patients. So again, I want to thank you for the amendments that you all have worked on. I am happy to answer any technical questions, but since it sounds like it's supportive, I won't take up too much more of your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment and see if Dr. Kasuga or Dr. Phillips have any questions for you on this one, since we're good.
The question I have, Mr. Suarez, is I assume from the tenor of your comments that you're amenable to the ideas behind our proposed amendments, and that it should be a hand in glove kind of operation for us to move forward with a straight support position if those amendments are made.
Yes, absolutely. And this is where, again, I want to thank the staff work at Board of Psychology. When our board took a position to sponsor this legislation back in December, one of the first phone calls that we made at CPA was to Board of Psychology staff, because if we're going to create a registration category at BOP, we wanted to make sure that they knew it was coming and that they had the language in the bill that they needed, and I should say you needed, in order to have these folks registered and well regulated under the practice of psychology. So we are absolutely favorable to those amendments. As a matter of fact, I'm excited that you have them in your document, because we've been working behind the scenes to try and get those ready. So I can also say that we have forwarded those draft amendments to the Senate Committee on Business and Professions and Economic Development to highlight what we would anticipate taking as the bill moves forward through the policy process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I see no further requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend support if amended on AB 1428 to the Board of Psychology. The motion was it by Dr. Kasuga?
Correct.
Second by Dr. Phillips.
Correct.
I have a 50-50 chance of getting it. Ms. Friteau.
Kasuga.
Aye.
Cervantes.
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So now we're going to move to agenda item 7B, and these are watch bills. And I'm glancing at the clock, and it's about 7:31, and I suggested that we might take a lunch break at noon for half an hour, but I just want to see how folks are doing. Might we move through our whole agenda and conclude early? How are folks feeling? Are folks feeling that they really need that lunch break at noon?
I'm feeling really positive about that, except I do need to take a restroom break.
Okay. Should we do a quick break? A quick what? 5 minutes?
Sounds good.
What do you think, Dr. Kasuga?
Let's make it 10 and then work through the rest.
Oh, okay. Okay. So before moving to item 7B, our watch bills, we're going to recess for 10 minutes, and then we're going to work through and try to avoid that lunch break at noon. Okay. So we'll come back at 11:42. When back, Ms. Prideaux, can you call the roll to establish quorum so we can continue with our meeting?
Yes, of course, Dr. Cervantes. Kasuga,
I'm here.
Cervantes,
Here.
and Phillips.
Here.
Roll is complete.
Thank you. So our next item, where we left off right before our brief recess, was item 7B, legislation for the 2022 legislative session. And we are on item B, which is our watch bills. And so item B1 is AB 1795, FONG, Open Meetings Remote Participation. This item begins on page 295 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you. Item 7B1 is AB 1795 by Assemblymember Fong. This bill would require state bodies, subject to existing exceptions, to provide all persons the ability to participate both in person and remotely, as defined in any meeting, and to address the body remotely. This bill has been referred to Assembly Governmental Organization Committee and does not have a hearing date set. Board staff recommends the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee take a watch position on AB 1795 FONG and recommend that position to the full board. That concludes my remarks for AB 1795 by Assemblymember Fong. I am available for questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Just by way of process, we do not need to take a position on these watch bills. So this is for information purposes and for discussion. Did I get that right, Ms. Bond, Ms. Sorick? I just want to make sure I don't butcher that.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any committee comments on AB 1795?
None from me.
Okay, thank you.
Nor for me.
Thank you. Seeing none, could we open public comment for AB 1795?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am opening up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to comment on AB 1795, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We will give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
And now moving to item number 2, AB 1860 Ward, Substance Abuse Treatment Certification. This item begins on page 299 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you, and apologies for my confusion. Item 7B2 is AB 1860 by Assemblymember Ward. This bill would exempt graduate student interns participating in supervised internships affiliated with graduate university programs in psychology, social work, marriage and family therapy, or counseling, and who are completing supervised practicum hours within alcoholism and drug abuse recovery treatment programs from the certification requirement. The bill is on the Assembly floor for a second reading and passed out of Assembly Health on March 23rd. The bill is sponsored by the California Association of Alcohol and Drug Executives and is supported by numerous groups, including the National Association of Social Workers California chapter. That includes my remarks on AB 1860 by Assemblymember Ward. I am available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any committee comments on AB 1860?
None from me.
Nor from me.
Okay, thank you. Can we open public comment on item number 2AB 1860?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have now opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on AB 1860, or you may simply raise your hand. We're displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Moving to item number 3, AB 1921 Jones Sawyer, correctional officers. This item begins on page 301 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you. Item 7B3 is AB 1921 by Assemblymember Jones Sawyer. This bill would allow correctional officers employed by the CDCR, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, to receive confidential mental health evaluations, and the bill specifies that psychologists can provide those evaluations. The bill is in Assembly Public Employment and Retirement with no hearing date set. However, it passed out of Assembly Public Safety on March 15th. This bill is supported by the California Correctional Peace Officer Association. That concludes my remarks on AB 1921. I am available for questions about the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any committee comment on AB 1921?
No, ma'am.
None from me.
Okay, thank you. Can we open public comment on AB 1921?
Thank you. The Q&A panel is now available if any member of the public would like to comment on AB 1921, or you may simply raise your hand. We will give you a moment. All right, I'm seeing no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Now, item number 4, AB 2080 Wood, Healthcare Consolidation and Contracting Fairness Act of 2022. This item begins on page 306 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you. Item 7B4 is AB 2080 by Assemblymember Wood, the Healthcare Consolidation and Contracting Fairness Act of 2022. AB 2080 would expand the Attorney General's authority to approve or deny a charge in ownership of a nonprofit health facility by including oversight and approval or denial of for-profit changes in ownership and control. The bill would also prohibit healthcare providers, insurers, health plans, and healthcare facilities from engaging in unfair contracting practices. This bill has been referred to 2 committees, Assembly Health and Assembly Judiciary. It will be heard in Assembly Health on April 19th. This concludes my remarks on AB 2080 by Assemblymember Wood. I am available for questions on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any committee comment?
None from me.
None from me as well.
Okay, seeing none, let's open public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on AB 2080, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I'm not seeing any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Moving to item 7B5, AB 2104 Flora, Professions and Vocations. This item begins on page 318 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you. Item 7B5 is AB 2104 by Assemblymember Flora. This bill would require the delinquency, penalty, or late fee for any licensee administered license within the Department of Consumer Affairs to be 50% of the renewal fee for that license, but never to exceed $150. This bill has been referred to Assembly Business and Professions and does not have a hearing date set. That concludes my remarks on AB 2104 by Assemblymember Flora. I am available for questions about the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any committee comment on this bill?
No, ma'am.
So Ms. Costa, this is already consistent with our practice?
That is correct.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, can we open public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on AB 2104, you may type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
So moving to item 6 is AB 229 Rivas, Peace Officers Minimum Standards Bias Evaluation. This item begins on page 320 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you. Item 7B6 is AB 2229 by Assemblymember Luz Rivas. The bill would require a peace officer to be free from any physical, emotional, or mental condition, including bias against race or ethnicity, gender, nationality, religion, disability, or sexual orientation that might adversely affect the exercise of the powers of a peace officer, as determined by an evaluation conducted by a physician or surgeon and psychologist. This bill will be heard in Assembly Public Safety on March 29th. That concludes my remarks on AB 2229 by Assemblymember Luz Rivas. I am available for questions about this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any committee comment on AB 2229?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
None for me.
Thank you. Can we open public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Q&A panel is now available. Members of the public can type comment and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise their hand. We'll give them a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, moving to item 7, AB 2274 by Rubio, Mandated Reporter Statute of Limitations. This item begins on page 323 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you. Item 7B7 is AB 2274 by Assemblymember Blanca Rubio. This bill would, under the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act, otherwise known as CANRA, would make the failure by a mandated reporter to report an incident of known or reasonably suspected child abuse or neglect a continuing offense until discovered by the appropriate law enforcement agency. This bill will be heard in Assembly Public Safety on March 29th, and it is sponsored by both the San Diego District Attorney and the California District Attorneys Association. That concludes my remarks on AB 2274 by Assemblymember Blanca Rubio. I am available for questions about this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any committee comment on item 7, AB 2274.
So Ms. Costa, this is this basically takes away the statute of limitations, at least until the date that the information's been discovered.
That is correct. Yes.
I do. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other comment or question. Let's open to public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on AB 2274, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We will give you a moment. All right, I'm seeing no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, thank you. So our last item on this section is item 7B, number 8, SB 1031 Ochoa Bo, Healing Arts Board's inactive license fees. This item begins on page 328 of the combined packet. Ms. Costa.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes. The final bill in item 7B is SB 1031 by Senator Ochoa Bogue. This bill would require a licensure renewal fee collected by any Healing Arts Board for an inactive license to be half of the amount of the fee for a renewal of an active license unless the board establishes a lower fee. This bill will be heard in Senate Business, Professions, and Economic Development on April 18th. That concludes my remarks on SB 1031 by Senator Ochoa Bogue. I am available for questions about this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any committee questions or comments?
None from me.
None from me.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Can we open public comment on SB 1031?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on SB 1031, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We will give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, thank you so much. So that concludes item 7 of our agenda. Item 8 is legislative items for future meeting. The committee may discuss other items of legislation in sufficient detail to determine whether such items should be on a future committee or board meeting agenda, or whether to hold a special meeting of the committee or board to discuss such items pursuant to Government Section Code 11-125.4. Is there any committee comment on this item for future meetings?
Dr. Cervantes, is this the item? I mean, is this where we can add watch bills?
Yeah. Well, we could. This is the time to bring up items for future discussion. Do we need to make a motion to add them to watch bills, or should she just make the suggestion now and then we could review it for the next meeting?
This is Jason. We can add bills to the watch list.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Kasuga.
I wanted to watch AB 988. It's by Bauer Kahan. It's a mental health crisis hotline.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other items for future meetings? I don't have any. My only request is that for our board meeting, if we can add some language about the existing laws that we discussed earlier with these, on these, when we're considering bills that have these issues about prior convictions, if we could have some language like we discussed earlier. That's my only request for future meetings. Let's open public comment on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on future agenda items, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We will give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you. And before I move from item number 8, I forgot to ask if there are any staff comments on item number 8 for future meetings. Anything from the staff?
None here.
This is Ms. Costa. I wanted to highlight for Dr. Kasuga that Assemblymember Bauer Cahan reintroduced the mental health crisis hotline bill. So the new bill number for 2022 is AB 1988. Would you like us to track that one instead?
Yes, thank you so much for that update.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Is there, seeing no other staff comment on item 8, we'll go ahead and move to number 9. Item number 9 is a regulatory update, review, and consideration of additional changes. And this is also included in the combined packet. It is on page 333. Mr. Glass-Steagall.
Good morning, members of the committee. This is Jason, the Central Services Manager, to go over agenda item 9. Included in your meeting materials is our spreadsheet type tracking method used for all of the board's current reg packages. I'll go over any updates down the line. So items B, I'll start with item B. The retired license regulatory package was submitted to the department on March 7th, but it has since left the department and moved to the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. This is great. It is continuing to move, so that's totally positive. Item C, which is the continuing professional development regulatory package, was submitted to the Office of Administrative Law in January of 2020. Well, I'm sorry, in October of 2021. We did have to withdraw the package and resubmit it, so that way it followed a more cohesive timeline for us. The positive update I have is I received all of the edits back from the Office of Administrative Law yesterday at 4:30. I have circulated those to staff. Staff don't have any concerns, and legal don't have any concerns regarding the recommended amendments from the Office of Administrative Law. So I will circle back with them, let them know, and we should be able to have the 15-day comment period start right around April 1st, so it'll end right in the middle of April. And that is to encompass not just the changes from the Office of Administrative Law, which are mostly non-substantive, but to move the effective date to January 1, 2023. So the board will be seeing this package at the April board meeting to ratify the final version of the language and receive and consider any comments received on the edits, the remaining edits and the implementation date, which again, the remaining edits are mostly non-substantive. The other update would be for the board's fee package, which is item E, like elephant. And that package was also submitted to the department on March 6th of 2022. And that package has also been moved now to the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. All other statuses are consistent with the materials provided in this memo, which begins on page 333. And Ms. Thork would like me to clarify that all the changes are non-substantive for the continuing professional development package, aside from the dates, which is correct. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I think we have a lot of stakeholders waiting on news from item C. So this is very positive for our next board meeting in April. Yay! Is there any committee comments on this item?
I just have one brief comment. It's more of a kind of a thank you. It's heartening to see, some of these packages actually make their way through this through the system, particularly some of the more complicated packages. I just want to tip my hat to board staff and management for making that all happen, and in particular, Central Services Unit, headed up by Mr. Glass-Steagall. I also want to have a comment that has nothing to do with anything except to say, thank you, Madam Chairman, for running such an efficient meeting. It's been really a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Dr. Kasuga?
I second Dr. Phillips' comments for both staff and for you, Dr. Cervantes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just want to say, I think that the reason our meeting, I just want to say publicly, I think the reason our meeting has been running so smoothly is because there has been a lot of care in the preparation. The analysis on the bills was very well executed. I think Ms. Costa anticipated some of the questions that, at least some of the questions I was thinking as I was reading, and then there's like an analysis about it. And so then I didn't have to think so hard. But I just really appreciate that and appreciate the diligence of everyone on the team, Mr. Glass-Steagall and Ms. Thork as well. So thank you, everybody. So we have one more item. It is recommendations for agenda items for future board meetings. Note that the committee.
Dr. Cervantes?
Yeah. Oh, wait, I forgot public comment. I got excited there. Sorry. Okay, public comment on item number 9, our update on regulatory update review and consideration. Do we have public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 9, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, we have a request for comment from Elizabeth Winkleman. So Elizabeth, you should be able to unmute yourself. And you're unmuted.
Great, thank you. Hi, it's Dr. Elizabeth Winkleman from the California Psychological Association, and I want to thank the staff and the committee members for not just the efficiency of the meeting, but also for the consideration and support for the CPA-sponsored bills that Mr. Suarez already provided comment on. My question is really just a quick one about clarification. As you noted, there's a lot of interest among psychologists about the continuing professional development regulations. And I just wanted to get clarification on when, I know that the proposed date for implementation is January 2023. And I wanted to know, when will that be is that official now? When will that implementation date and the full package become official? One. And the second question is if you could just confirm, I believe this was addressed in the last meeting, but I've gotten questions about it since then again. None of the new continuing professional development categories would be able to be used if they were earned prior to the implementation date. For example, if somebody is renewing in January 2023, they cannot use continuing professional development activities that are not traditional CEs if they were earned in 2022. So I hope that's clear. The two parts of my question or request for clarification.
Thank you. Mr. Glass-Steagall, now that we're a little bit further down on that set of regs, do you have additional insight here?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Hoganson.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Heather Hoganson here, your regulatory counsel. First, I think as Mr. Glass-Steagall mentioned in his comments earlier, there should be proposed modified text going out to comment very soon, probably by the end of next week, for a 15-day public comment period in which members of the public will have an opportunity to comment on what are essentially minor edits to the text, but the Office of Administrative Law did suggest some edits to make the language more clear. And in that, the effective dates will be listed. The January 2023 dates will be listed, so you'll be able to see how those affect things. But in answer to the second portion of the question, no, you can't count something because it doesn't legally exist yet. So I know that there are probably a lot of people who want to start using that new system, but until it's approved by the Office of Administrative Law and effective, it cannot be counted. And I hope that answers that. Thank you.
And this is Jason. If I could just add one piece to speak to Dr. Winkleman's question, that just a reminder of the process after the 15-day comments, and it goes back to the board in April. Once the board votes on the language at the April, I believe it's 29th board meeting, then staff can make the remaining edits to the updated informative digest and final statement of reasons to incorporate the changes and any public comments made to the second modified text, which is the one that should go out, just as Ms. Hoganson said, by the end of next week. And then we will return the package to the Office of Administrative Law, and they have their, I believe it's 30 days or something to review the package. And so we should know. My goal is to have everything finalized by my internal goal in my head is by July 1st. There are actual dates in that around that would modify that slightly, but that's my going internal goal.
Thank you. Thank you both, Ms. Hogginson and Mr. Glass-Steagall. Is there any other public comment?
This is a moderator, and no, there is not. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now we can move on to item number 10. This is recommendation for agenda items for future board meetings. Note that the committee may not discuss or take action on any matter raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Is there any committee comment on this item?
I have none.
Dr. Kasuga?
None from me. Thank you.
Is there any, thank you. Is there any from staff? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to recommend future agenda items, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I'm not seeing any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you, everyone, for such a productive meeting. Seeing no further comments, we will adjourn our meeting now.
Thank you, everyone.